Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's broadcast on Wednesday. What's the date today?
It is Wednesday.
7:30,
and it's Table Talk.
Oh, that's right.
And we are just chilling out.
We are chilling out. We're glad that you're with us here this evening. Thanks for taking the time. I know some of people, they watch us live, and next time they watch us when we're away, and they
I
can just catch it later.
was going to say, don't watch us while you drive. Okay? That is not legal.
Okay, that
so
isn't
don't,
okay.
Don't do anything illegal while you're watching Table Talk.
I think we're going to jump right into it again.
I think so.
Sunday was a great session we had. Sunday was a lot of honesty and realness and stuff. And one of the things I want to remind our listeners and our church family, one of the reasons why we started to do this all along was simply because we wanted an avenue to connect with you. One of the things that's hard in these last several months where haven't been able to meet and haven't been able to come together is how do we stay connected? How do we keep connection? And that part of it is really, really difficult. And it's really stretched not only us, but I think it's stretched just everybody in general because they've had to learn to do things different. And so one of the reasons we did this was so that we could connect regularly. And we understand it's coming, it's beautiful outside. It's starting to get summer up and we're not we know it's going to be busy and people are going to hang out, and so we just want to give some key principles out there and stuff that we're working through, so that when you have time, you can log on to Facebook or log on to our website, YouTube channel, and you can just catch some of these things and just give it an opportunity for you to connect with something. And I know we're all going through stuff and we're working through stuff and we're pushing through stuff, and sometimes it's good just simply to have a moment of stoppage. And just allow some truth to penetrate into us. And because it is our commitment, and we've talked about this before many times, our whole desire is to be real. It's not necessarily polished. We want to be spontaneous, and yet we also want to be thorough in presenting what we want to present. And today is one of those days that we want to jump right into it again.
And I love the title, Facing Your Giant Uncut.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
You can drink your coffee.
Okay. Okay.
But because that's a part of being real. But we sometimes like the edited version of ourselves.
I think if we're honest, and you and I even talked about this, if we're honest, we tend to edit ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's different reasons for it, because sometimes we don't like what we see, and so we don't want people to see certain flaws, or we're really good at presenting a package that isn't real. And part of freedom is accepting yourself for the struggles you're going through, the difficulty you're facing, and the stuff that isn't all together. And I don't know about you, but I've struggled many times throughout life when people have always given an edited version of themselves or their ministry or their context of their life. The unedited version.
That might be the giant you're facing.
That probably is a giant.
I can't show the real me.
Because I think a lot of times how we often grew up to learn, because we're not happy with ourselves, and we have to create a package where people are polished and looking well, and one of the things that's really brought liberty and freedom in our own lives and our own journey is the idea of being real.
And you know what? One of the key things for me is sometimes we have looked up to people, and there might be heroes in your life, whatever they are. They might be in a position that you just look up to that person, and all of a sudden they become real. And they become, because there's a certain image and you're like, that's what I want. They got their crap together. Their family's doing awesome. They're just succeeding in every way. And you think that's their real life. And all of a sudden they open up and they unedit.
And there's mess there too.
Yes. And all of a sudden they become relatable. And they all of a sudden bring hope to you, because isn't that true?
I love hearing people's stories of how they pushed through stuff and how they grew and how they learned. I'm not into the polished. That's just honk. It's like, that's not real. Oh, that's a nice image you're putting up there. That's not real. You know, you can't be that put together. That's not real. And I think there's something about realness that attracts people, because you've said it before here, just in a few minutes ago, but it brings hope. It brings perspective, and it brings people on a level that they too are in process. And I love that, because we're about encouraging. We're about freedom. We're about giving life. We're giving hope. And I think that's the aspect of that concept is, hey, do we make mistakes? Yes, we do. Do we have everything together? No, we don't. Because we are in process.
That's a part of facing our giants.
Yes.
If we have this total edited version, we're never going to come to that point where we have to actually take down a giant.
And I think sometimes too, with that aspect, is we're so good at perceiving something that it takes work and effort to keep that persona or that picture up. And when we crash, oftentimes we crash hard. And then everybody around us, what? And so we just want to celebrate our journeys. I've said this many times before, and I keep saying it over and over again. The process is just as important as the result. So don't polish. Don't give me something polished. Give me something real, because something real we can always work with. And that's why God is never threatened with real, because he sees us unveiled. He sees us with our mask off and working through stuff, and his value and his love for us doesn't change. And that's what's so magnificent about it. That's what's freeing about it, because sometimes I've never felt free because I had to hide and I had to keep myself from God, and I did, because I was afraid. It was always about exposure. It's always about healing, always about health. And so coming to this whole aspect of facing your giants, how do we describe what a giant is?
You know what? I was thinking about that, and this is what came to my mind, was a giant is something that stands in our way to keep us from accessing what is already ours. Like, it stands in our way so we don't progress, so we don't access something.
So it can be thinking.
Yep.
It can be belief system.
Yes.
It can be things we've learned, things we have developed into.
Yes, habits.
Habits, situations where we have to wrestle through stuff. Giants.
Life.
Can look at such different finances, life. I mean, we've had our own battles with finances and working through that whole ordeal of stuff, and it really, giants can really take a toll on your life. They can really stretch you in areas where you are not willing to stretch, and they can really confront things that you don't want to confront. And the reality of facing giants is they're not giants. Giants are never there. Well, they're there to expose and destroy. But God wants to use those moments of those opportunities to bring out the real us as we conquer and overthrow them.
I like that.
One of the things that I found hope in my own life was giants are conquerable. Those things are in our life to be stepping stones to next chapters that we're going through. And we've uncut, and we've both, unedited.
Yes, and we've both said that. Like, in our journey, we've both said that. I never thought that this was possible to live in this area of freedom.
It's like anything in life where we start having obstacles and come against things and roadblocks, and whenever we come to those points, we have choices to make. And for so long I was empowered not to make right choices. It was always from a negative perspective, and that's been a giant in my own life to have to push through is negativeness and working through that in the reality of our own life. And so facing the giants, facing our giants uncut. There's three things that we wanted to kind of talk about, because in relation to what we're going through and how we've learned and what developed in our own life, because we are still on the journey, is I've recognized that we all have them.
Number one.
There was so many times in my life where I thought people never struggled like I did. I thought they never faced the things I faced. It would have been so nice to be in their shoes, because they don't have to go through what I go through. And the reality is, all of us have giants.
Sorry to break it to you.
All of us have things in our life that are going to come against us and hold us back and keep us from reaching our potential, to hold us in hostage mode, like in a hamster wheel that just keeps turning. We all have giants. The difference is that I've recognized in others and myself It's how we deal with them that makes all the difference. Not that we don't have them. And one of the realities I learned too, ignoring them doesn't negate the fact they're there.
No, I know.
Because they show up. They show up like cream on the top of milk. They just rise.
You know what? It's so funny because just in our technical age, we can edit out the giant in our life. We can make it look like, our Facebook profile, like we could just make it look like perfect. And you know what I just thought of, like, sometimes we want the camera to see the best side of us. And I'm just being honest here. That's why I sit on this side and Geoff sits on that side, because this is the better side of me. Because we want the best side shown. We don't want the whole. Just being real. Sometimes we want to edit out our things so that it looks like we don't have any giants, but we do.
Yeah, we all have to face those giants. We all have them.
We do.
The difference is how we work through them and how we confront them in our lives.
And that shows that you're not alone. Okay. We all have giants. We're not alone.
Yes.
We're not alone.
And I think if we're honest, sometimes we do feel alone.
Yeah,
we feel like no one else is going through this stuff. No one else is working through this stuff. And then it's hard to trust others. It's hard to bring other people in. Yeah. And if we have a wrong view of God, it makes it difficult for us to trust him too, because we think, he can be that giant in our life. And he's the one that give us life to conquer through our giants, to push us through. And I remember looking, the Bible's full of examples of characters that were normal characters.
Yes.
And they were unedited. And I think sometimes we like to edit them. We don't want to show their flaws because God used them, so we have to kind of show the good side. Yes. And really, it was them as a whole that God chose. God chooses us because he knows who we are. Yes. He knows what he's put into us, and that's what qualifies us. Not that we can always show the polished side of ourselves, but we can deal with these giants. Again, I realize that sometimes it's our attitude in how we see these giants that will determine how we're going to conquer those giants.
Yep.
But the reality is we all have them.
Yes.
David had them.
Yep.
Moses had them.
Yeah.
Elijah had them.
Yeah.
Paul had them. The early church had them. All of them face these different things, and we can learn. This is what I like about scriptures, because we can learn so much from their experiences, and that's what often gives life and hope to other people. When you can watch other people push through their own stuff,
their unedited version
of themselves, push through some of that stuff, that they get hope and go, if they can go through and push through, so can I. And I think that's what makes our life so powerful, when we be real with people in the journey. We don't stay where we're at.
No.
But we face our giants, we push through them. It gives hope. It gives a sense of life, because if they can do it, so can we do it. And that's what's beautiful of this thing. Instead of it causing people to hide, it brings a reality to it.
Your story is powerful.
And we can never negate your story. Never downplay your story. Your experiences and the things you've gone through are uniquely to yours, because you're creating a path. You're creating a road and navigating through your stuff. And God's using that stuff to build you into the people that he's designed you right from the beginning to go through. Jesus himself even faced giants.
Yep. So we all have giants.
We all have giants. The second thing we want to talk about is I have it written down here. I've got lots of scribbles here, because it's just some of these neat aspects to our life. So we all have them. Second, we need to face them.
Are you serious?
If we want to grow, if we want to move ahead, if we want to bring new chapters into our life, we have to face them.
And that's hard, because sometimes we want to run. Sometimes we want to hide. Sometimes we want to get the heck out of here, because they are intimidating.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking giants are sometimes, they look intimidating, and the words they speak are intimidating. Like, it's not just their look, it's the whole atmosphere they create is intimidation.
God is for us. and wanting us to succeed and created us to succeed.
Yes.
But that will never negate the fact giants will rule their ugly head.
Yes.
Because we need them. That's it's hard to grasp that.
That's interesting.
We need them. I don't know of too many people that would want to get in an airplane and with a pilot that had no experience whatsoever. He's all book smart. They want someone with experience. I don't think you ever want to have surgery without a doctor knowing they've worked through hurdles. I remember one time when we were in Haiti years and years ago. We were with a couple, and they've gone through some serious storms on their ship. And we went through one, and he brought a calmness to everything because he said, I've seen worse, I've been through worse. This is no problem. All of a sudden you rest because they were able to push through. And I don't think
they conquered some giants.
They conquered some giants.
Yeah, but
and I think if we want to be everything God's created us to be, we have to have people in our life that have conquered giants. If you've never conquered giants, you can never have the influence that you need to have.
That is so interesting because it just reminds me of, like, I know the David and Goliath story is so prominent. Like, that's what we always think of, somebody taking down a giant, because it is a powerful story. But back up a little bit in David's life when he was looking after sheep. He was just only a shepherd, very insignificant. No big applause for him there.
No.
But what he gained there, the skills he gained
Yes.
from overcoming lions and bears, protecting the sheep, actually, those were the tools in his pocket when he faced that huge giant.
I remember back in I think it is Genesis or Exodus when Moses was going to go and lead the people. And before that all happened, he ended up spending many years in the wilderness and experiencing a lot of things that he probably didn't recognize were necessary for him to succeed in his next chapter.
Yes.
You know,
That's
growing
so
up as a
powerful.
child of the king and then being ostracized
Literally.
and running for your life and then thinking that chapter was over and God was preparing him through this next season for something even greater that was yet to come. And it was through those experiences that God built him to the point where he could enter that next chapter. Sometimes I think if we're honest, we want the next chapter. We want to just get over this and move ahead when there's valuable things that we have to learn in order to thrive in next chapter.
Yes.
We can't negate
Yes.
the process of what needs to happen, because in that process we're going to get a set of tools and things that God's going to bring to us that aren't going to be for necessarily now all the time, but for a next chapter. And I remember Abraham was at this one point in his life, and he really was asking God about something, and God says, "What's in your hand?"
Moses.
Yeah. Who did I say?
Abraham.
No, Moses. Yeah. Blah. What's in your hand?
Yeah.
What? Well, it's just this. It was something insignificant, but yet that insignificant was a tool.
Yeah.
That God was going to open up and liberate in his life for the next chapter.
And that's exactly when you said, don't negate it. That was ringing in my mind. Don't negate the tools, the little battles you've won and the tools you've gained and equipped you in the last chapter. Don't negate those small things, those small battles that you've overcome, because they are key to going into your next chapter and
I never
equipping
thought
you
of that.
for that. It's
Don't negate those tools.
No.
Because there's something that are and you know and you look at Moses' life, and all through his experiences he gained something for something greater. And so but oftentimes, I don't know about you, but I find myself when I'm in that process of little gains and what is this so significant, I tend to have a very now mentality, and it's like, this is a waste of my time, this is a waste of this, why am I doing this, let's get over with it. Yet those things are all building blocks for something in the next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
So we all have giants, and we need to face them.
Yes.
We've got to learn. If we don't face our giants, if we don't face the things that come against us, our mindsets, our thinking, what we believe or what we've learned, or all these different stuff that even are out of our control, when we don't learn to face them, they will inevitably get the most of us.
Yes. And I have something written down here because it's really powerful. It says, if you tolerate your giant, he will take over your territory. What belongs to you, he's going to take.
Giants always want territory.
Yes, they do. He will come right on your doorstep, on your property, wanting to access what is yours. Don't run from your giants. You don't negotiate with them. You face them. No negotiation, no excuse. Face them.
I'm reminded when Joshua took over from Moses. Moses had died, and Joshua is now going to take over leading the children of Israel into their promised land. Huge responsibility. And in Joshua chapter 1, God keeps reminding Joshua several times, only be strong and very courageous. And then he says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and very courageous. And then verse 9 of the same chapter, yet again he says, be strong and of great courage. And I thought, man, he had to mention that 3 times, all in a small little segment. That tells me that Joshua probably had some insecurities, had some issues of taking over, and God was reminding him, you take courage. You have take courage. Courage is the ability not to run from our fears, but courage is the ability to face those fears and go after them. And that's what builds us. That's what God uses. He doesn't put these things in front of us. Life does that. Life just does that. Sometimes we're just at the wrong place at the right time, and boom. And sometimes we create those giants ourselves because of fear and beliefs and those types of stuff. And so when they reel their head, we don't have to run.
No. We
need to look at our giants as there's my opportunity to learn something, to develop something, and then to rise above something. And I believe that's what we are. Inside, every one of us have that ability because God created that in us. He speaks that in us, and not only that, but he believes that in us. And I think that's incredible. Facing your giants, you got to face them, or we have to overcome them, or they will overcome us.
They're going to take territory if we don't.
And I think sometimes it's hard to believe. And I can conquer this.
And so sometimes in that place when it feels really intimidating, because they look intimidating, those giants, and they sound intimidating. The words they're speaking are very intimidating. But I just want to say, don't rationalize. There is no rationalization with Goliath. No. There is just like, he just wants what you have, what is yours. And when we understand, we can have access to everything God has for us. Even when that giant's standing in a way, when we understand within us is the one whose word is way more powerful than any word that's coming, that's intimidating us. We can have access, but we have to face them. We all have giants, and we have to face them.
That's one of the things that the book of Psalms has been very personal and many times in different chapters of my life, because it really shows an unedited version of David. David struggled. It was an unedited version of David, and sometimes church culture doesn't like the unedited version. But the edited version is what gives us hope. What speaks life to us. It shows us that we can overcome, that we can work through what's in front of us. And David is a prime example of that. And throughout the Psalms, you hear him, and you see him very vulnerable. And sometimes he questions his circumstances. Sometimes he begins to ask God, why is this happening to me and no one else? You've promised, and it's not working. What's going on?
That's right.
And in that whole process that he works through those emotions, those feelings, yet he sees God, and God comes through, and all of a sudden he begins to see perspective, and then it gives him tools for the next time and the next time. And oftentimes we like to see David when he was this mighty king, great conqueror, great wisdom, military power, might, but we don't want to see the process of what it took to get there. He had to face giants in order to be at this place. And so we have to start looking at giants differently. We got to start looking at giants as our opportunity. Opportunity. And that brings us to our third point as we're closing here.
Yeah.
Is how you view your giants will be key in how you take them down.
I like that. How you view your giants is key to how you're going to take them down.
I remember David when he seen Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, and he went to go check out his brothers, and the nation was divided. Israel was on one side, the Philistines were on the other side, and there's a great valley between them. And every time this giant Goliath came down and challenged one of the Israelites to fight him, it says clearly that the Israeli army all trembled at his voice. And yet here's little David, young at the time, curious what was going on, hearing what was happening, and asking some questions, and they brushed him off. And so he went to the king and said, "What's going on here?"
Why isn't anybody...
And one of the things that intrigued me of that passage is to make a long story short, after he was going to face a giant, the Bible says he ran towards Goliath.
Yes, he did.
He never walked and sneakily got around the corner.
So what does that
ran.
What does that say? How did he view him?
That tells me that he viewed his giant as it was conquerable. And he let nothing stand in his way. Not an entire army that was equipped to fight the battle. And the other army to defend the battle.
His brother's saying, "Who do you think you are?"
Absolutely.
The king says, "You're a lad. He's a warrior."
And yet it took that courage. And that's how we need to face our giant. David didn't allow the intimidation of Goliath, his appearance, and his entourage to deter him from knowing that he was conquerable.
And the thing that he carried in his pocket it seemed insignificant. Because Goliath was like sword, spear. He was like decked out to the hilt to protect himself and to gain access for more territory. David had stones.
Yeah, it says he had 5 small stones and a sling.
Insignificant. How the heck is he ever going to take his giant down? Right. But he understood something.
Yes, he did.
His view of Goliath was totally different than the whole army.
He viewed Goliath different than the entire army viewed Goliath.
And that's the key to taking your giant down. And he understood something because he says, "You come to me."
Spear and javelin, sword.
With your weaponry. And he says, "I'm coming to you." He didn't even say the stones. He says, "I'm coming to you
in the name of the Lord.
In the name of the Lord of hosts. The heaven's armies are backing me. I know who I am. I know who's behind me. You got no chance."
Absolutely.
Oh, that's powerful.
That's powerful when it comes to taking down our giants. It's powerful when we understand God's truth is greater than anything else around us. It is us understanding that truth, coming to grips, the light's coming on, then we can face our giants. And our giants do not define us.
No.
We never allow giants to define who we are.
No. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's almost like that one stone you take out can be that one word you speak when you're facing your giant, and the intimidating words, and you just speak the word that God says is truth.
Yes.
No, you're coming down. You're coming down. I'm not coming alone. I got a whole backing system here. I know the one who's in me, and he's in you, and he's for you. Yeah.
And that's one of the voices that we want to portray here as you listen and log in and that kind of stuff, is that greater is he that is in you than anything else around you. Your giants intimidate. Our giants intimidate, but we can conquer them. They are conquerable. We're not defined by them. We use them to gain tools for the next chapter and where we're going. Thanks again for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
So good.
And glad you joined us this morning, or this evening, I guess. And we hope you have a great rest of the evening. Have a great rest of the week. And we're going to be looking forward to seeing you Sunday at 10:30, right back in the studio, same place.
And enjoy this beautiful week.
Take it all in.
Awesome.
Take it all in. Again, there's resources on our Facebook page. There's resources on our YouTube channel. Just all around, look at those things. We're so grateful for that. Thank you, and goodbye, and we'll see you on Sunday.
You bet.